Hello, everyone. Welcome back to week 15 of the No One Asked podcasts. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Brock. Thank you for joining us once again. And, as always, just plugging the Instagram at no one asked _podcast. Go give that a follow. And, just the usual feedback and any insight you can give us would be much appreciated.
It would. Obviously, we put out Monster episode last week. I was pretty happy with it. I think, hopefully get some feedback on that one pretty soon. But yeah, we've just been, how's your week been, Brock?
Yeah, not too bad overall. Nothing too exciting going on, but, just living.
Yeah.
Enjoying the day-to-day life.
That's the way, isn't it? That's the way.
But yes, when you mentioned last week's podcast, big thank you to Samuel for obviously joining us for our Monster, I think, 2-hour podcast ended up reaching. So
yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, but it was very friggin' long and took a long time to edit. But you know what? It was a good podcast. It was nice to listen back to. So cheers to my brother for joining the podcast. I'm not going to fill his ego up anymore, but shout out Samuel. But I guess, number one thing I want to talk about this week is sort of this Israel Folau situation that's going on. Obviously, Rugby Australia settled. The details of it all are meant to be confidential, but settled with Izzy in the court case, whatever, about him getting, unrightfully sacked in his eyes. But I guess, I don't know, it's really a touchy subject because, obviously it covers religion and it covers free speech. But at the end of the day, he wasn't sacked because obviously because of his religion or, because we're trying to suppress his right for free speech. He was sacked because it was a homophobic post to begin with. And I think that's the biggest thing that's sort of gone missing in all of this is that it wasn't because Rugby Australia was trying to suppress him or suppress his views. It's because his views were homophobic. And, no one in this modern world can, be homophobic and get away with it, really. And I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's just such a shit fest.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as a Christian myself, it sucks to see him using his huge platform in this negative way. Religion, especially, I find myself in Christianity, it's all about love and bringing people up and things like that. And unfortunately, he's decided to go the other way about it. And, whether it's right or wrong in the religion, not necessarily ours to make comment of. And, he believes that. So that's good for him. But obviously, majority of people have an issue with it. And that's come to the end of this. And like you said, it's not because of the religion he supports or anything like that. It's just he's made these comments twice now when he's clearly been asked to, and there was a clause in his contract that was kind of like, let's not have this happen again because it's impacting badly on rugby union. But he's gone ahead and done that, and this is the result of it. And the big payout he's probably got now, should he get it, because it's kind of a breach of his contract, not necessarily, but a lot of things he did have to say he had the right to as well. Like even, if he wanted to come play rugby league, which seemed to be kind of shut out of the picture, like he should have been allowed to do that because he hasn't breached any of their contracts necessarily.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. So I do understand why he's gone after rugby union and looked for these payouts, but, it's an all-round bad situation. Thankfully, it's over.
Yeah, exactly. And, I guess it's just one of those things where every sport is sort of trying to become more and more inclusive and trying to, not in a way like one-up each other, but really they're trying to just, every sport's trying to become more inclusive. And I think that's why he didn't get a go in league. I mean, look, at the end of the day, he's an athlete and he's a really good athlete. He's, played multiple sports at the highest level. He's proved that he can perform. So it's a shame that his career has obviously taken this pathway. But at the end of the day, you make actions like that and obviously it's going to cost you. But yeah, I'm glad we settled it out of court. I'm glad personally, I would have preferred we go into court and, absolutely blasted the shit out of him just because, he was homophobic, not due to any other reasons. But I guess at the end of the day, the cost that it would have, been to Rugby Australia if we had have gone to court, the judge says Israel's right and then we have to go through, a retrial or whatever it is that goes on, it would have ended up costing more than potentially what this payout is. If it's north of $6 to $8 million, That's a lot, considering that that's like 13 to 15, nearly 20% of what we'll make in the TV rights deal next year, which is definitely concerning. Obviously, Rugby Australia is already on a tight enough budget, and we don't need that weakening. But look, if we settled it out of court, we saved ourselves a shit ton of money, even if it is a lot now. It's not dragging on for years and years. It's not hurting Rugby Australia's, public opinion or public view for years and years. And I guess, that's sort of the one thing that I applaud Raylene Castle on, is that, she's come into all this mess and just sorted it out. And I know that there's a lot of, I hate to say it, but a lot of old white men that want her position that are, trying to bag her down in the media. But look, she's come into a situation. The board before her was terrible. They made a shit ton of mistakes, and she's just she's done a lot of work to try and dig Rugby Australia out of the hole that it's in, and I commend her for that. And obviously, I'm glad that this situation's sorted with Izzy.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's kind of best case scenario for just getting it over and done with. A lot of people probably aren't going to be happy, and although I haven't seen a whole lot said about it, I think everyone's just happy it's out of the media now. But it's settled, and that's the best case scenario, despite the huge amount of money that Rugby Union Australia is going to have to pay up now, and so on and so forth. But it's done. It's over with. Hopefully there's nothing that ever has to come out about it again.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess, moving on to some more positive news for rugby this week is that, the Reds somehow, and Rugby Australia secured the signature of Vunivalu not next year, but the year after, starting 2021 through to the Rugby World Cup. How do you feel about this as a Storm fan?
Obviously a big loss. He's an absolutely quality player. So it sucks to see him go in this fashion, but I'm definitely glad he's given us another year to, try and achieve something. And, I think Storm's going to kind of, I'd say, go all out to win a premiership this year. It's probably going to be Cameron Smith's final year, and Vunivalu is going to be off now. But the amount of pieces they're selling as well, with, the Curtis Scott and the Brodie Croft, which I know if we've spoken about the Brodie Croft, but, he's now signed with Broncos as well. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I think it's going to be a big all-out fest for Storm to win it this year and then recalibrate and see where they're at next year. But I'm not too phased about this overall.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like, I think wingers, and I hate to say it in both sports, but really they're the most, plug and play players on the field.
Yep,
at the end of the day, it's like, once you get an X factor guy there, that's obviously hard to replace, but still, like, you can pick up that X factor in other positions, and it more than accounts for what you lost on the wing. So look, I think it's a great signing for Rugby Australia. I think, you bring in a 6'3" guy who's 100 kilos, and, he's obviously a professional winger. He's proved himself time and time again in the NRL, and there's not too many guys of that size, that speed and agility, or that combination floating around in Aussie rugby right now. But, the biggest concern for me is that he's going to the Reds, and obviously, Brad Thorne's backlines certainly haven't shown that they can win games recently, and they definitely haven't had stability since Brad Thorne come there at the number 10 position, which is obviously pivotal to a winger, I think, in rugby. And, I feel like with the way the Reds are, he'll get shifted around. He might get played at centre some games, maybe thrown at fullback. But I feel like you look at how long it took, and obviously the other thing is that, the transition from league to union and the issues that we've had with Marika that we've sort of voiced on the podcast sometimes is that, since he's a league winger, he's used to coming in off his wing to look for work. But you do that in union and you leave yourself exposed on the edges. And, that's the biggest thing is if Vunivalu's going to the Reds, they don't have stability in the back line and he's getting shifted multiple positions. When he does get played on the wing, either for the Reds or the Wallabies, he's going to, want to come inside to do more work and just get caught out. And, it's taken Marika 3 full years of Super Rugby, plus basically he got force-fed into the Wallabies team to really hit this form that he did in the World Cup this year. And, my biggest issue is that we only have 2, or I think it might be just 3 seasons with Vunivalu in Super Rugby. And yeah, it's the transition and going to the Reds is a bit iffy for me. But look, I think he's got X factor. I think he'll make a massive difference to a Reds backline. But there's just some other issues that they need to get sorted out around him. But I'm really happy with the signing, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that needs to come with it to bring him up to the standards that they need. But I'm actually not too sure where the Reds were kind of looking at at this for. Like,
Yeah.
you said you voiced your opinion that there was some issues there currently with Brad Thorne coming in and trying to get this backline right. And I just feel like Vunivalu's not going to be the answer to that. Like you said, he's elite, his X factor, his size and frame, it's unreal, but he's very like high impact, but then backs off a lot. And I feel like that's the complete opposite of what you need in rugby, especially as a winger. Like, you need to kind of be a bit like standoffish at first and then have that high impact where he's going to be committing to a lot of things where he doesn't need to be. And if, it might work in his favor, because those 50-50 calls where you might go for an interception or so on, which we see him do all the time in the NRL, and, it only works a handful of times. And if it doesn't work, they're normally scoring a try.
Right.
It might be a little bit better in Union just for the fact you have an extra 2 men on the field.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple extra players to cover you there. Maybe someone can get across, and it's not going to look so bad when, these plays don't hit.
Yeah.
But he's just a very hit and miss person where I feel like you probably need someone a lot more consistent. But I'm sure it's going to work. He's going to be phenomenal. Like, it's definitely going to work. And I think for Storm, as a supporter myself, like you said, wingers are somewhat replaceable. And even when Corabidi went to Super Rugby, it was kind of the same scenario. It was like we brought in Josh Adokar straight after, and it was replaceable. Obviously, Josh Adokar is phenomenal and was one of the best wingers anyway. But it's certainly replaceable in that feat of the imagination. But yeah, for me, I'm certainly a lot more worried that we've decided to transfer away Curtis Scott and Brodie Croft, in my opinion, rather than Vunivalu.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's fair enough, to be honest, particularly with the uncertainty that you guys have around, Cam Smith and what he's doing, and you let a couple of young guys with, potential to play all over the park walk. It's definitely iffy. And I guess, getting into the Storm, like, what do you think they're going to do? Like, obviously you said they'll go full tilt this year, but what do you reckon happens after? Because obviously I think if they win, the whole thing next year, I think that'll be Cam Smith's, swan song. I think he'll go out a champion. But, what do you do after that? Because like you said, you've lost Curtis Scott, you've lost, Brodie Croft. I hate to say it, but it's looked very dicey for the Storm dynasty. I know you guys, obviously, Craig Bellamy's a legendary coach, so you'll pull something out of somewhere. But, how do you feel about it all?
Yeah, exactly. As you said, I'm not overly worried because Craig Bellamy's still at the helm. Like, I've kind of been wanting Cameron Smith to retire just for the fact, he's getting up there in age. He's had a phenomenal career. Let's just bring in some of those young guys. But apparently we've decided to start trading some of those off. So I'm really actually not sure whether it's Melbourne Storm or Craig Bellamy's head's at the moment with what is next, because even, saying in this regards that I think they're going to go all out and it's going to be this year, we're going to be trying to win the premiership, like, harder than we have previously.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure where that's coming from as well. Like, we haven't signed anyone that gives us a huge increased odds to win the championship or anything like that. So I'm not sure where it's going to come from. And after this year, certainly we become a bit more dicey as a team. I don't think the dynasty is going to be tarnished or it's going to end anytime soon. I think we're just too far ahead of the pack, like Roosters are.
Yeah.
But, even with Cooper Cronk leaving, you guys are still going to be just fine. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not worried about the future. I'm just not sure where the future is going to come from. Whether it's, a few young guys that are sitting around in the club that getting given the chance, and even, Cameron Smith, he's already planned on, like, we already have Brandon Smith there ready to take over, who's already playing hooker for New Zealand, who's just sitting on our bench as a utility player. Like, so there's definitely plans in place of what's coming next, but I'm just not sure where that's going to come from, specifically in Curtis Scott and Brodie Croft. Like, I'm not sure what we're going to do at 7 this year. I'm really hoping we're not playing Jerome Hughes because we re-signed Pappenheisen as well.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping it's not going to be Jerome Hughes in the halves and Pappenheisen in fullback, but that's the only real, like, kind of certainty call I can make with what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real tough because obviously you voiced before that you don't really like Jerome Hughes in the halves, but can Pappenhausen play anywhere else besides fullback? Like, I genuinely don't know. So I was just wondering, like,
Yeah, I don't know either. We haven't seen it at all,
right,
but I'd probably be guessing not. Like he has good ball handling skills and so on and so forth, but he just I don't know. He's a big speedster, and that's kind of where I leave it in a way. And maybe that's
right,
being really harsh on him. But when he was being subbed on that at halftime or the 50th minute, and he was coming on as just a monster speedster, like he was getting incredible stats, and he was making a stupid amount of line breaks and
yeah,
scoring tries and doing all the rest. Like he was such a high impact player. I wish we had kept that,
right.
but it seems like we're going to be playing him, from the starting minute and going through for the 80. And I just don't think we're going to see that same quality that we saw out of him last year. Like I definitely think we took a big hit when Jerome Hughes walked into the halves and, he started at fullback for us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know. This is the problem, isn't it? Like, really, because Vunivalu's obviously staying to see out his contract, which I think is a good thing. Is like you guys really can't go hunt on that on the open market for another playmaker, really, because you've still got a lot of cap tied up this year. So, yeah, really, it's like your hands are sort of tied until next year, and then you don't really know what's going to happen because we don't know, like, obviously what's going on with Cam Smith, but yeah, it's just it seems rough for the Storm, but obviously you guys still have one of the best coaches in league at the helm and a great club culture, so I'm sure you're going to be fine. Like you'll still be contesting for the
there's
finals
plenty of
next year.
positives as the actual club that
Yeah,
comes along with it. That there's been years of worry when Slater left, and Jerome Hughes came in, replaced it, and
yeah,
we haven't looked that much worse overall. So I definitely don't have any concerns to voice my opinion on what's going to happen. Like it sucks certainly to see Curtis Scott and Brodie Croft leave, who I thought would definitely like starting players this year. Like I definitely think Croft is the best half we had to offer outside of Munster, and Curtis Scott, those final few games, despite us losing them, he was a much higher impact than Will Chambers. With Will Chambers obviously leaving as well. There's a few holes to fill, and we seem to like sell off the players that made sense to fill those holes.
yeah. And I think I genuinely think it might just come back to what you sort of alluded to last week, is that maybe Bellamy just didn't like those guys in a way, or had issues with them, like because.
Yeah,
everything you're pointing out, it makes no sense for you to, go through a fire sale that you are right now and, ship off all these players when you obviously need them to replace. But I guess, I don't know, like, it's just shitty. But how much of an impact do you think that Curtis Scott and Brodie Croft will have on, the Raiders and the Broncos now that they've obviously moved there?
I'm definitely interested to see Curtis Scott at the Raiders. Like, I think for a few Raiders supporters and so on, people I've spoken to, it's really hoping he's going to replace Joey Leilua. Just he's dropping off year after year. He's making more mistakes. He's just not as trustworthy, despite having a few great games throughout the season. He's just not that consistent performer where I think Curtis Scott fills in great. So if that's the only thing too with Curtis Scott. It's kind of like, who's he going to replace? He can't really replace either of the centers unless you get rid of Joey Leilua, which is a viable option because he's not going to replace Croker on the other side. Like he's not a winger. I don't see him being quality enough. At least we haven't been able to see it yet to play in the halves, which I don't know where we're going. Like Raiders have already signed someone for their halves anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm really not too sure where he's going to fit in, but I definitely hope he succeeds there because he's a quality player. Yeah. And Brodie Croft, I think, is going to have a much higher impact. Like him and Milford, if that's the way they decide to go in the halves, I'm actually really excited for. Hopefully, Milford can get back to his form when Ben Hunt was next to him.
Yeah.
But we can only wait and see too. Like I just think Broncos have a lot of holes to fill. I think Croft certainly fills one in the halves, but there's just a lot more that needs to come. Like they've got a great forward pack. They just need to sort out their spine and this back line, and they're going to be back as a high contestant player team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, like in other sports, the Broncos are sort of one of those teams that when the Broncos are doing well, the NRL's better. If you get what I mean, it just feels right for the Broncos to be, a good high performing team. And obviously, just like you guys, they're another team that, if if Brodie Croft hits and works out, that means that, Darius Boyd, I don't know when his contract ends, but I'm pretty sure it's at the end of this year, isn't it?
Who's that for? Sorry.
What's his name? Darius Boyd.
I think he might even still have another year left after.
Right.
I think it was a 4-year deal when Wayne Bennett left, so I think he might still have another 2 years, which is terrible.
Yeah.
For the Broncos, but yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunate scenario. Like, he's just a huge waste of money.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is obviously if they're getting him off the books at the end of this year and Brodie Croft comes in and makes a decent impact, then, they obviously have the cap space from Boyd to go out and make some other plays. But I think what you said with Curtis Scott, I think realistically, if someone can sort of play more consistently than Joey Leilua and, still have the same impact for that Raiders team that Joey Leilua does, I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders, I don't know, maybe let Joey Leilua go, because there was talks that he was, going to move to the Bulldogs or the Knights earlier in the offseason. So, if the Raiders continue to, sub in and get good players in, and let other guys walk, they really are sort of starting to build this championship sort of way, or like a very heavily contested way of where they're, bringing in guys who can replace or at least have the same impact as other guys, and then, build up the team in other spots, which is impressive. But yeah, I think they're both going to have massive impacts on their teams. Obviously, coming from the Storm, anyone who leaves the Storm's good. So I think I'm keen to see really the impact that, both of them have on their respective clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just going to be seeing whether they can keep that quality that we've seen the Storm at. Like, we've seen some people leave the Storm and be incredibly successful and bring up their teams. And we've also seen people crumble back down to earth because, they just looked a lot better than they were because they were part of this Storm team. And I think, people like Will Chambers certainly, and like Chase Blair a few years ago, were part of that role that it was like, a lot of people did the work and they just got to finish it type thing. And just quickly on that Darius Boyd, I believe he's definitely signed on for this next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think he has the option for the year after. And I think it's like his option, not the club's option to sign.
Bugger. Damn, oh well. I mean, hopefully he opts out and retires or something, because I don't know. I feel sorry for the dude because obviously he was a very good player. But at the end of the day, like, if you're getting paid that much money and you're not performing, I think you sort of warrant some criticism in some regards.
Yeah. Like, his quality is like currently at his level of quality is currently playing in like the Intra Super Cup. Like, he's not really an NRL player anymore, but I think there's talks that he's going to be moved to centers, which I think is probably going to suit him a lot better.
Right.
Because they don't have to rely on him as much.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to run around everywhere. He can just sit to his position and play. We're probably still going to see him try and do more than he's capable of, but hopefully it just works out for the team a lot more, and they just need to ride this contract out. Like, I'm pretty sure they're paying him $800,000 a year, which is just monumental amounts of money for what he's worth.
Yeah, it is. That's a shit ton. But I guess, I think obviously the last two things that I sort of want to mention about the NRL is obviously, South getting the medical exemption to clear the cap hit that Burgess was going to have on them. Obviously that frees them up to, really go for Jai Arrow now, which, is the tough or the strong get stronger and the weak get weaker, I guess, at the end of the day. I mean, like, obviously I shit on the Titans a bit last week, but I really don't understand, like, it's just iffy that, you get into a situation with the Titans where they're in a great location. So it's not that. It's just, years and years of being shit is just making these players walk out. And every time they look like they're, going to hit with a new spine or something to work out, it just seems to collapse in their face. And it looks like it potentially might cost them another superstar if Jai Arrow goes to South. I don't know how you feel about it, but.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate circumstance that the Titans are on. And like, this pathway just downwards, this downwards trajectory is just, it's really like quite awful to see.
Yeah.
But like you said, the strong get stronger and the weak get weaker. And that's just the way it kind of goes, which sucks for teams like Titans that are trying to, have been trying to bring themselves up to the standard for the last 12 years or so now.
Yeah.
But just, they haven't really seen the opportunity to do so. But, if Jai Arrow wants to move to somewhere where he's going to potentially get premiership football, you can't, fault him for that. And, good luck wherever he goes. I'd like to see him stay at the Titans, though,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, well, me too. I think it's just, at the end of the day, the only thing that Jai Arrow leaving, really, it doesn't benefit the Titans at all. The only thing it benefits is that, one of the teams that'll most likely be in finals is a lot stronger, which will make finals footy more exciting. But it just almost guarantees that every time someone takes a trip to the Gold Coast or has to play the Titans, it's just going to be a blowout. And that only benefits, one half of the match because the fans go home saying, wow, we just beat the Titans 54-6. Like, wow, look at us go. But realistically, it's like it does nothing because no one's going to want to go watch a shit team. I know because I'm a partial Reds fan. Like, no one's going to go want to watch a shit Titans team get smacked every week. So I hope he stays there. I hope he keeps him competitive. And I hope, obviously, Ash Taylor and everything else that sort of went on last year is cleaned itself up and sorted itself out and they can actually give it a full grow and tell. Because I just think, like, there's so many, obviously we speak about league as a sort of, it's a hotspot. A hotspot of it is Queensland. And I feel like there's so much untapped potential that the Titans just can never seem to get going up there. And, I keep thinking about if they move it to Ipswich, is that really going to make such a difference if it's the same squad in a different location? Like, I mean, they might get some more support for more years, but at the end of the day, the quality of their squad just doesn't stack up when it's not performing. And I mean, I don't know. The NRL wants to expand. I think Aussie sports are sort of in this midway where we're not really making enough top quality athletes right now. Like, we're sort of, you bring one guy up from the lower levels and he outperforms and then everyone goes, shit, we look at all this quality we've got. Let's, add another 2 teams. But you also look at how terrible the Titans have been year on, year out. And, I don't know, man. I feel sorry for him and I hope he stays to sort of make him competitive and everything else gets sorted. But it's just a shit situation. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And, talking about expansion, I hear a bunch of analysts and so on and so forth talk about we should get rid of them and have a second Brisbane team or move it to Ipswich, like you said. And everyone from down south wants a Central Coast team, which I think is a great idea.
Yep.
But we're going to come across these exact same issues in the next 10 years with a new team that we have at Titans right now. At least Titans have their stadium set up. They have everything good. Like, everything's in place to succeed. The only reason they're not succeeding is because they're not getting the players. And I know, I'm pretty sure I've said this to the podcast or just to you in general. Like, a few deals go different way. Like, they get DCE and Jared Hayne actually works out and, Jai Arrow stays. They're actually a quality team.
Exactly.
Like, you have Ash Taylor and DCE despite the issues that went on last year. That's one of the best halving groups in the league. And if Jared Hayne actually comes back, works out, you've got one of the best fullbacks in the league sitting there. And, you've got a great spine now, a great hooker. Like, you've got your spine is set in place for the next, 5-10 years or, up until this point, until Jared Hayne retiring. And they would have been a top 8 team.
Yeah.
But, DCE cancels on them last minute and Jared Hayne just causes an uproar, gets the coach sacked and then leaves. And, it's a few things like that that have caused them such distress and such agonizing pain that they haven't been able to rise to the levels we expected they could. But, you have to realize at the end of the day, who would you rather go play for? A team, whether it's a Sydney team or it's Broncos or it's Storm that have so much history, so much success that you watched up, that you grew up, watching, or a team, it's the Gold Coast. What a great place to live, but they don't have that history or that pride that comes with it, that culture that you expect. Like, it's just a good avenue to come into the league, then move to somewhere better, in all honesty.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the sad thing, isn't it? Is that, and most of the club history from, the other NRL teams that you just mentioned, like South, the Roosters, the Bronx, is all because, they were floating around in the 8, 10, 12 team comps in the, the early, 1900s and then obviously into the 70s and 80s and 90s. It's like, they didn't have to deal with, these expansion teams and then obviously the competition gets weaker. And it's really, like you said, you're right. The lack of, club reputation is hurting the Titans, obviously, I think. But, I mean, it's just a shit situation. Like, who does want to go there and play, even if it is a Queensland team? Like, realistically, it and a lot of the, even a few of the New South Wales clubs are just starting to look like feeder clubs for the bigger teams anyway. So it's really getting out of hand, and I don't know what the NRL is going to do about it, to be honest.
Yeah, and like you said, Titans have kind of turned into a feeder club in a way, and that just sucks to see. Where let's even look at the Storm, who really kicked off on a lot better start than the Titans did. Like they were actually like challenging for top 8 and so on from the moment they walked in, and then had a couple mid-table seasons, but they were in a lot better scenario to kick off. And you've had the dynasty that's come because of Cameron Smith and Billy Slater and Cooper Cronk, all these great players, even Greg Inglis, Folau coming out. If all these players had been sold off because they were just kind of like a feeder club in regards, they don't have that history. Even I think I've made mention to you that once upon a time, Craig Bellamy and Cameron Smith were potentially going to be signed to Raiders. Like,
wow,
this dynasty would be going to Raiders potentially, and Storm would be one of these clubs that have had a 20-year history with an early premiership, and that would have been just about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just disregards of it's almost luck of the draw when you enter the competition. If there's a like good group of people leading the club, like board and so on, that just make a few right calls, you get a few good scouts, they get a few good players that end up being exceptional and generational talents. Your team's obviously going to look great, and you're not going to have these negative comments about you that we should potentially be dumping you from the entire league. Like, it just sucks for Titans. And I don't know, I also look to it's like, you know what? Queensland is one of the biggest, Queensland, New South Wales are the two states that actually care about NRL. And currently, Queensland only have 3 teams versus however many are in Sydney alone. And you can't really strip any of those Sydney teams out because they do have that culture and that history in the league. But we definitely shouldn't be trying to take away any of these Brisbane teams that, gaining so much traction and people actually care about up here too. Like if it was a team, unfortunately this was the circumstance with Western Force and so on, but if we had a team in Northern Territory or Western Australia that, they just weren't getting fans to games and no one cared about it because they rathered AFL or they rathered rugby union, it makes sense why. But I'm pretty sure on average, Titans are still getting more fans, whether they're home or away, doesn't really matter. They're getting more fans than the majority of Sydney teams, on average each game. So there's nothing really going wrong. Their team's just not performing, and a few lucky strokes, and they will turn into a top 8 team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, obviously what you alluded to there is like Queensland is sort of in our areas of sort of like obviously where the teams are right now. It's like there's North Queensland, there's Brisbane, and then there's Gold Coast, and they're all at least, well, obviously North Queensland's way away, but Brizzy and the Gold Coast are like an hour away from each other basically. So you definitely don't have, that sort of like what you have in New South Wales where you might have, 2 clubs within each other and they sort of have to share the same area for fan bases. And obviously I think that's what the NRL is sort of was aiming for, is that, you go, holy shit, Brisbane's here, North Queensland's here, they're both succeeding. If we had another team here, we're potentially, looking at least a 30,000 strong fan base just due to, the population sizes in those areas. And I mean, yeah, like what you said was completely right. I don't know. I really think that if one team gets cut, it should really be a New South Wales team. I think there's 2. It's starting to get to the fact that even you look at the New South Wales teams, some of them are still, becoming feeder clubs for, the Sydney teams really. And it's all just shit. I feel sorry for the Titans and I feel sorry for the Gold Coast fans that, back the Titans as much as they do. But I guess what can you do really? Like you said, it's really that when you come in, everything aligns. And that's so much of what sport is that, you somehow hit the masterstroke with a good coach and a good board and a good spine, and then everything rolls together. And, like you said about the Storm, if they don't get Bellamy, are they still the team they are today without him? And it's just, you never know. There's so many what ifs in sport, and it's tough for the Titans.
Yep, absolutely. And, even you bring in a new team and it takes years for them to develop. Like,
oh yeah.
Even let's go back all those years to when Townsville got the Cowboys. Everyone in Townsville for many years still supported the Broncos because that's the only team they had the choice to support because they were the only Queensland team. And it took a whole entire new generation to come through and actually be big supporters of the Cowboys. And now that's finally succeeding. And Cowboys have had some great success the past few years that, there's no question about why they're there.
Yeah, exactly.
And Titans is just still going through that. It's like everyone on the Gold Coast that's, above the age of 20 is probably supporting Broncos or, just some random team.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
not the Titans because that's all they never knew a team called the Gold Coast Titans when they were there.
Yeah.
Like they just didn't exist. They're, I think, for both of us, when we first started supporting NRL, like the Titans weren't in it. I still remember when they entered the league and I was like, oh, cool, a new fancy team.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'd never seen this before. So anyone older than us that was supporting, just won't really support the Titans because they were a new team. And it's like, well, I already have my team and, it's wrong to change teams.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's only this new generation younger than us that are growing up with the Titans just being a normal team. And if you live in the area, you're obviously going to support them.
Yeah, exactly. And, obviously, like you said, success and everything will not only, accelerate their growth as a club, but also propel it. But, like it is, I don't blame players that want to leave, situations they don't, obviously desire. But at the same point, it's like, you look at some of the legends in sport and they're guys that have dragged franchises out of the mud or, elevated franchises to the next level. And obviously, it seems to be, it sort of has started happening in American sport where, players are more happy to move or team up or, just to make winning championships easier because that's ultimately their goal. But you look at, some of the legends, like you look at like Kobe or Michael Jordan or just, just to go on. And it's like, they're guys that stuck it out with their franchises through shit times. And obviously, some of them had great teammates early, but still you stick it out and then you elevate a franchise and you become a legend. But it just doesn't seem to be the culture anymore. And I think that's what's ultimately going to hurt if they have a new club or whatever they do with the Titans or, what I mean. And even still hurting the Titans right now is just the fact that no one wants to stay there to dig the hole out of the mud. It's not that sort of like, and I hate the narrative that it is, but it sort of is in a way. It's like, these players, they're not, obviously money's not their main motivation, but at the end of the day, if they can get $350,000, they're professional players. That's their job now. It's not like, you look at the 80s or the 90s players where they were in, work doing laborers jobs and then go on to play. It's like, this is their job now. And if I can make $350,000, nearly winning a championship every year or $350,000 being stuck on the Gold Coast, in a wooden spoon battle, I'm obviously going to go to the job that, gives me a better chance to win the championship. But there just doesn't seem to be that sort of loyalty or commitment to or want to make a team good anymore. It's just, sort of counting till the next check or the next, chance to win a championship. And I think, like you said, it's going to hurt any new teams that come in. It's just this new sporting culture and this new fan culture that, winning is everything. And I don't know, man. I'm all over the place, but do you sort of get what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, absolutely. And the truth is, it's like you'd certainly rather see them stick it out and, have that loyalty. But, you make mention of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. It's like, yeah, despite some of the hard times, they walked into franchises that were already relatively great. Like, especially that era, they definitely brought them up to, like, their teams up to that quality. But they were the best teams of the era. Like, Lakers and Bulls used to be the best of the best. And there wasn't really any question about it. So, a great player walking into a team like that, it makes sense. And obviously they're going to be loyal. Where, if you walk into a much worse team, and let's just, say the Titans, that we're not really sure where they're going. There's still a lot of holes to plug before we can contest for, even top 8.
Yeah.
It just sounds a lot easier. Like, you do look at Jai Arrow and who knows what he's getting paid at each place and what's on like the table for being offered towards him. But you get to play for a team that, like you said, are going to be wooden spooners each year for the next few years till they can get a few things to hit. You'd love to see it. But when you have an offer on the table to go play for a top 4 team that's going to finish top 4 consistently for the next, number of years and going to be contesting for premierships, it's certainly a lot more, it makes sense to go to that team you're going to win premierships for.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you said, unfortunately, there aren't a huge amount of loyalties, but all the loyalties lie where someone's, signed for a great team off the get-go.
Yeah,
And it
exactly.
makes sense to stay with them.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so much of it is luck. Like even the Storm, you look at them bringing in Cooper, Billy, and Cam Smith all around the same time. Like that's just pure luck that they all hit, and then obviously make the Storm as good as they are. And and this is a thing that I sort of just thought about with all these feeder clubs or NRL teams that are shit, and obviously feeding the bigger clubs is like they seem to have every couple of years they seem to have one guy hit and then he moves. Like
Yeah.
it sort of is just like if they have 3 or 4 of those guys hit all around the same time period, then there's no reason why they're not suddenly contesting, and it just
exactly.
and obviously that's another thing that feeds it is like why do you wait in the uncertainty that like maybe someone else might blow up or you could go and win a championship, and it's just tough. But I hope that all these lower end clubs, because every sports league is better when every team's competing against each other, and at the end of the day, the NRL is very top heavy right now, and it's unfortunate, really.
Yes, absolutely. And I think on that note, we should probably move it on for a bit of NBA chat.
Yes, you are. I think, speaking about competitive leagues, I think the NBA is back being far more competitive this year. I think, obviously Kawhi choosing not to go to the Lakers is definitely, it definitely evened up the league from the get-go, really. Him teaming up with Paul George in LA. It's just made everything fair. And I think the last time we spoke about it was a couple of weeks back. I think it was November-ish or mid-November. And, there's been some big changes in the NBA since then, really. Was there anything you want to mention before I sort of get onto my dialogue? Because I got a bit written here. It's not too much, but
not a whole lot in specific. So you go ahead and fire on all cylinders.
Sweet. Well, I obviously just want to say, like, since we last did it, I think the Bucks have had a 13-game winning streak. I don't know if that's still going on. I think they might have a game today. I don't know the score of it, but they're now first seed in the East. The Celtics, the Raptors, they're all up there emerging as genuine contenders. I think the Heat have come out of nowhere. They signed Jimmy Butler and all their rookies have hit, or all their sophomores and rookies have hit this year, and it's just been ridiculous. They've got the 3rd seed right now. It's insane. I think the Pacers, they're missing their all-star Oladipo, and they're still fighting with the 6th seed. I do have genuine concerns about the 76ers, though. They seem to be dropping a lot of games to very iffy opposition. Yep. And the Nets sort of Kyrie's out injured, and Kevin Durant's obviously still out injured, so they're barely hanging around in the lower end. But I think you look at the Hornets too. They've surprised me this year. They had a couple of decent free agent additions with Terry Rozier and these other guys, but then you look at guys like Devontae Graham. They've sort of come out of nowhere. Miles Bridges has taken a step this year. I think really the Hornets are impressive, but I must say the most disappointing thing for me since we last did an NBA recap is the Atlanta Hawks had started the season 4-6, and they're now 5-17. So in the past, I think 3 weeks, they've won 1 game and lost 11. And I think Trae Young was injured for a few of those games. But at the end of the day, Trae Young's out there dropping 30 plus or around 25 plus a night, and the Hawks still can't get it done, which is disappointing for them. But I mean, look, the Eastern Conference is just a mess. It's essentially a version of the NRL where, there's a few decent teams that aren't in the top 2 or 3. And then, it's super top heavy and the bottom half of the league is complete shit. I mean, the New York Knicks are in that conference. I don't think I need to say too much more about the Eastern Conference if we want to bash the Knicks for a minute, but
but yeah, like especially on that Atlanta Hawks, comment there. I think Trae Young's been fine, but there's been a few pieces around him.
Oh yeah,
that
absolutely.
It's been heavy reliant on him to perform.
Yeah.
Like I did have it here, but yeah, there was just a few other people that got injured at that team, and they've been heavily reliant on Trae Young, and he's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal this season. But it's just not enough to carry this team over. And yeah, it sucks to see a team that was looking like it could have headed in the right direction just completely come back down to earth.
Yeah,
but
completely.
Yes, continue on with your dialogue.
Yeah, and then obviously getting into the Eastern Conference, Lakers are cruising. Feels good to actually finally support a team that continues to be elites. Touch wood. But obviously the Clippers, they've risen up. I think Dallas Mavericks have surprised me a lot this year. Luka Doncic has come out of nowhere, and in the past, 10 games, he's, scored 30 plus points as a 20-year-old in 7 of them. He's had 3 40-point games in those 7, and he's had 3 triple doubles to go along with it. And I think his most impressive one was, I think, against the Warriors, he dropped like a 26, or I think it was either a 30 or 40-point triple double in 26 minutes, which is insane. I don't think he played a single minute in the second half. And I think Dallas is genuinely emerging as like a proper contender in the West. I think, Denver, the Rockets, the Jazz, they're sort of sliding, sort of staying the same. I think Rockets have a few issues. Did you hear, I'll just go on a sidetrack here. Did you hear about the, obviously the Harden dunk that they didn't call a dunk, and then it ultimately lost the Rockets the game, if you want to say that in a way? Did you see about that during this week?
No, I did not actually. Who was that up against?
It was against the Spurs. So, the Rockets are up by 15, I think it was, with 7 minutes to go. Harden dunks the ball and it goes into the net and then shoots back out of the top of the net. And the refs obviously didn't count it. D'Antoni didn't challenge the call. So they played, and then they gave up a 15-point lead to, Lonnie Walker, who's in his second year. He's all right, but he's not, anything special, obviously. He dropped, I think it was like 17 or 18 points in the last 7 minutes to force overtime against the Rockets. And the Rockets have gone on to lose the game. And then they've appealed this call with the league office, and they want the last 7.5 minutes of the game replayed. But I think, with the controversy that Daryl Morey caused and cost the NBA a shit ton of money with his comments about China in the offseason, I don't think they're going to get it approved. But I think, just Rockets are such a whiny franchise. They're just complaining about everything right now. And the fact that if you give up a 15-point lead and lose, you deserve the loss. Just take the loss, move on. It was a missed call. It was a bad call. They happen. And at the end of the day, just get over yourself.
And I definitely agree with that. Like, it's just a big situation where it's like, you need to move on from that point. Like, They definitely do seem like the divas in the league. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They're a quality team with some great players. But, even looking at the stats for that game, like, you've got Harden dropping 50 and you're still not able to win it. Like, there's so much else that needs to come up. Like, that team is so good, but everyone needs to pick it up where, Harden's just sinking threes for the fun of it. Like that's all he does all night.
Yeah.
But I think, when you had that situation to call it during the game, that's when it needs to be made. If the wrong call's made, it's, I don't know, for me, it's definitely just like, it's too bad. Let's move on from this. Like, everyone has suffered some bad calls in games. And I think they were in a lot more crucial situations than this one. Like, if you get one bad call against you, but also decide to throw away a 15-point lead.
Yeah.
I don't think it comes back to that one call that ruined your night.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it at the end of the day. And, Russ triple doubles in that game too. So, look, you've got Russ triple doubling and, obviously he scored 19 points. So it wasn't just a triple double, and Harden's dropping 50 on 38 shots. I think that's your bigger issue, is the fact that you have a guy taking nearly 40 shots a game to score 60. It's not that impressive. Like, listen, I get that it's hard to perform at the NBA level and shit, but if you're taking more than half of your points in shots, I don't think it's that impressive. And I think you deserve the loss. Just take the loss. Who cares? The Spurs aren't shit this year. One loss to the Spurs doesn't mean shit. You should be more worried about your games against the Jazz and the Nuggets, that sort of level that you're competing at. Losing to the Spurs that I don't have no idea what they're doing, whether they're tanking or what's going on. I don't think Pop's tanking, but it's just give it up, all right? Just don't complain, Houston. You're already in the bad books with the league because of what you caused in the offseason. So just shut up and take the loss.
Yep, agreed.
But I guess obviously, and then, hanging around in the West, I've got the T-Wolves and the Suns still hanging around. I think, they're sort of, they're definitely outperforming what I thought they would. I thought they'd be, sort of battling down in the 12th, 10th seed, trying to fight for an 8th seed. I didn't see them hanging around in the 7th or 8th seed. So that's obviously impressed me a bit, but then
especially Phoenix too.
Exactly.
They've got some great players, but I didn't expect them performing this well. They've consistently kind of been on the worst end of the table, but it's been a good performance. Like, they're 10-11, which is still negative, but a few wins coming up in the next few games could actually set them up in a really great position. So definitely impressed with them.
Yeah, exactly. And the biggest thing for me is that they're obviously not relying on Devin Booker to play Harden ball and shoot 40 shots a game to drop 50. Like, the team sort of seems to have, figured out what it is, and they started to at the end of last year, but, their other key playmakers or their other guys around Booker, like, Frank Kaminsky's come in from the Hornets and he's doing decent. And, Aaron Baines obviously got traded from the Celtics. He's doing decent off the bench. But the guys like Kelly Oubre and, all the other guys are actually stepping. And obviously they got Ricky Rubio too. I forgot about that. But, they're sort of stepping up now. And it's really impressive to see, really, is the fact that, this Suns team is fighting and clawing. And, it's impressive that they're not relying on Booker. But, another team that I sort of want to give a massive shout out to and a player that I want to give massive props to is, Carmelo Anthony and the Blazers. I genuinely thought when, the way that things were going with Carmelo that, his career was done. I thought it was done.
Yeah.
The Blazers come in, they give him a non-guaranteed offer, which they've now guaranteed because he was, I think he was named, I don't know whether it was player of the week or player of the month for November. He's come in and he's
he got player of the month, actually.
I think it was player of the month, which is super impressive that a guy who, everyone deemed as out of the league as a bum because of what he'd done on Houston and obviously New York before that, but he's come in and he's averaging like 20 points to them. He's been exactly what they need, and they've gone from 4-8 and looking like they're in a real pickle to they're now 9-13, and I think they're only a couple of games off, the 8th seed, which for a team that started that shit with that high of an expectation to fight back that hard is super impressive. And I think OKC sort of still fighting around there. I thought that they wouldn't be anything this year, but Shai, Gilgeous-Alexander, and Chris Paul seems to be happy there, so that's surprising, but, they're still fighting. And then Spurs and Kings, I don't give a shit about, but the Pelicans and Golden State are ass. I don't care about Golden State. I think it's good that it's sort of calmer in a way. Obviously, I don't wish injuries on any players, but to see a franchise that sort of cheated to get 3 championships and, now they're sort of suffering is kind of nice to see. But Pelicans have sort of been suffering with, they can't win close games. I have been watching a couple of the Pelicans games because obviously I like the Lakers players that they've got, but I think like they've been fighting, but they just can't seem to get over the hump, and I don't see that changing. But, one of the things I actually wanted to talk to you about is that there was a report come out during the week that a couple of, NBA executives are worried that the Warriors are starting a new trend again called the gap year. Do you want to guess what that's about?
The gap year?
Yep.
I got no idea with this, actually.
Yeah, it's
gap year.
See, I had
year off, rest everyone up.
Yep.
Hit again next year with a nice high pick.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's what NBA executives are like. A few of them have spoken to some reporters and they're genuinely worried that, the Warriors are treating this as a gap year, as, Steph and Clay, they probably could return at some point this season, but they're just like, we'll give them the year off, let them rest. Yeah. It lets the rest of their team emerge, and then they come into this offseason with D'Angelo Russell on a 2-year deal, a very team-friendly deal, very tradable deal, and they'll have a very high draft pick. They could flip, this year's pick and next year's pick for an all-star, or D-Ross and either one of the picks for an all-star, or even just bat it out and, potentially pick up a Luka Doncic or something in the draft is what the quote was from one of the executives. So, I don't think Golden State's doing that intentionally. I just think, they've had some injuries and now they're just performing shit because, they're a team that's crafted around their all-stars. And when 2 of your 3 guys now are out, and Draymond's been out injured all this year, and obviously D-Ross has been injured a bit this year, it's not going to be pretty. And I really think that that's all that the Golden State's doing. But that sort of wraps it up for me on the NBA, I guess. That was a massive dialogue. I don't think anyone would have enjoyed listening to that, but, I love the NBA.
It's a nice review to come with it. But I think also just talking about that gap, I definitely think it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Like they go, you know what, let's actually just rest our players that are injured for much longer than they need to be, get set for next year, move on from there. We'll, take a lot of losses, come back strong to end the season.
Yeah.
But obviously we're not going to hit a position where we're successful at all. But, as much as it may seem like, it's cheating or so on and so forth that some people might be saying, I don't actually see anything wrong with it either. I think it's a lot more high impact when you have, only 5 guys on the court at a time versus, NFL that it's a 53-man roster.
Yeah.
But we've had this discussion before, numerous times. We both sat, Saquon Barkley got injured in the NFL with a high ankle sprain, which is, a 6 to 8 week injury. After 6 to 8 weeks, and, Saquon Barkley's been back for a number of weeks now, but they still haven't been performing the Giants. But we went, just rest him for, double the time he needs. Just rest him for the rest of the season if you have to, because And a high ankle sprain isn't a pleasant injury to be coming back from.
No.
It's not the most serious of injuries, but it's just the type of injury that takes a very long time to get over. So why not just rest him? The season's already over. You're not gonna change the world, light the world on fire if Saquon comes back early, even though he's an absolute superhuman. Just rest him. You've actually got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So I think that was our opinion, just for, the safety of a player and, hoping for their future and the future of the team. And I guess I can't, stand there and say that about the Giants and Saquon Barkley and not say that about the Warriors with Steph and Clay and, the amount of injury concerns they do have.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So it definitely sucks to see that that's the way they potentially are going, and it makes sense they're going that way. But I also don't see anything wrong with it. The club has a long career that, the franchise goes on forever, and they have a great history the last few years. There's no reason why they don't pack their bags for the rest of the season and, just kind of call it quits and, get good potential for next year.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree. I don't see anything wrong with it, because at the end of the day, this is how this Golden State Warriors dynasty was built anyway, is, they draft Curry, and then I think a couple of years in, he got injured and sat out a season, and that's how they got Clay and Draymond. And, ultimately, if, I don't think they'd be doing it intentionally, but like it is, Clay's coming off an ACL tear, and in the NBA, that's massive. So give him the full season and come back. And look, at the end of the day, the Warriors, I'd rather see, a full strength Warriors squad competing with the higher ups than, a battered, bruised Warriors squad forcing Curry and Clay, who are already injury prone, to be honest, to play through injuries and, barely compete in the West. I think, taking this year off and then they come back really dominant is just going to be better for the league in the long run anyway.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I guess, we were speaking about Saquon and his issues. They've got another injury. Danny Dimes, Vanilla Vic, is out this week, and the main man, Eli Manning, is tipped to return as quarterback of the New York Giants.
The legend himself is back.
Yep. And I
mean,
mean,
you know what? We were speaking about what a great note for him to end on 50-50 for the rest of his career.
Exactly.
I think he's going to be ending on a not so positive finish to his career now, unfortunately.
You know what? That's fair. I see why. But at the same time, I would love to see Eli end the Eagles season and go out as a winning quarterback. That'd just be so funny.
It would be absolutely phenomenal to see.
Yep.
But, maybe we're asking too much of the Giants.
Yeah, I think we are. Look, at the end of the day, I think Danny Dimes, Vanilla Vic, I love saying that, is out with a high ankle sprain. So he could be out multiple weeks. But, it's just Eli Manning playing NFL again is a funny thought. And even though he's filling in, it's just the potential that the NFC East is shit this year. I'm going to go on multiple changes here, but it's just terrible. And the fact that, we're genuinely wondering whether Eli Manning can come back and end this, Eagles season shows how weak all the NFC East teams have been. Cowboys lost yesterday. So, if the Eagles win tomorrow on Monday, then it'll be, I think Dallas and the Eagles will be on the same record, and Washington Redskins aren't even
on 6 and 7.
Yeah, and the Washington Redskins aren't even mathematically eliminated from making the playoffs yet, which is insane. So
when you have a team that is 3-9 and mathematically not eliminated, and each game that goes by, it's only looking better that they are going to make it, with Cowboys and Eagles performing so badly, is beyond ridiculous.
It is.
At this point in time, we can and potentially probably will see a team in the NFC East go through to the playoffs on a negative record.
Wow.
There's not one team in the NFC East that is now on a positive record after Dallas got beat. And the truth is, it's Eagles, probably do end with a positive record, and the Cowboys should. But, talking about the Redskins mathematically could go through. They're 3-9. They win the final 4 games. They're 7-9 and could technically make the playoffs.
Oh my God. I would love to see that. I would honestly love to. The Dallas Cowboys season is a throwaway. I don't give a shit anymore. We're not genuine contenders. I don't think the Eagles have to get something sorted. So I think they need to lose. The Eagles and Dallas need to lose for genuine change to come about. And I think that if we both lose and Redskins sneak into the playoffs, I would be absolutely happy with that. Obviously, if Dallas lose and Eagles make it, I'm not really that impressed with that. But if the Redskins somehow jump both of us and finish the season with a home field game against whoever it is, whether it's, the Seahawks or the 49ers, that is just, it's ridiculous that I'd love to say, I want the Redskins in the finals. I don't think it's going to happen, but man, just them with a home field advantage over 49ers, that'd just be ridiculous.
That it'd be insane, but it's stupid how bad this division is.
Oh, yeah.
You dead set look. Dallas are currently 6 and 7 in the 4th seed because they're the top of their division.
Mm-hmm.
If Philly knocked them out, but let's just say they stay there, Philly are currently in the 10th seed overall.
Wow.
At 5 and 7. Whoever goes through is going to jump up 6 places. And these are teams that I think we can both agree aren't competing anywhere near the Super Bowl.
No.
Whoever comes through in the wild card, whether it's Vikings, 49ers, Seahawks, maybe even Rams come through.
Yep.
They are going to get absolutely battered by any of those teams, more than likely.
Oh, 100%.
So you're looking at, you're probably going to take the 8th highest draft pick, as in lowest. So you're going to have the 24th overall draft pick versus if you miss playoffs just because you're so terrible in this NFC East, you're probably going to be dropping down to the 12th overall pick.
Wow.
That's 12 picks higher.
Yeah.
Even though your record's almost equivalent, just because both teams are so bad, but one team has to go off at that, at the least the 8th seed into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Beyond ridiculous. And sorry, that's 8th seed of both conferences, obviously the 4th seed in their conference.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. I haven't even thought about how different the draft picks will be for us or the Eagles or just anyone if we, don't win the division. And I think, look, like you said, I think the Eagles have had offensive spot. I don't understand how. Their weapons have sort of been proven. I guess that they're old. I think Wentz is still doing a decent enough job. I think Ertz is doing. I think Wentz's issue is that he checks down to Ertz too much. But if he doesn't trust his receivers, which rightfully so, they've dropped a shit ton of balls. I think that's fair enough. But then you look at Dallas, and it seems to be Amari, Dak, and Zeke scratch and claw every single week to try and do something, and either bad play calling costs them on the offense. But then you look at the defense. We made Mitchell Trubisky look like a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Oh, his stats were insane. He threw for 4 touchdowns. I think he had a 60 or 70% completion rate. He looked amazing. I looked at the stats. I'd caught some of the game and, you guys just looked terrible. But the stats post-game where Trubisky, like you said, Hall of Fame, MVP level stats is ridiculous. I think he ran for 60 yards.
Yeah, and look, this is the thing. We can't contain a quarterback. Every time we play a running quarterback, he's gone off. And, even if, thank God we don't play in the AFC, because if we had to face some of those guys, we'd be in terrible shock. But it's just the fact that I don't know what's happened. DeMarcus Lawerence is not the player he was last year. Jaylon Smith is celebrating when we're down 17 because, he punts a ball, he stops a run. It's just... The defense is just so mentally checked out, and it's not their own. They're checked in, but they're checked in for the wrong reasons. It's DeMarcus Lawerence hasn't looked the same. Jaylon Smith isn't performing anywhere where he needs to. Our cornerbacks have no ball playing skill. Our safeties have been all right, I guess. It's just the whole defense just can't. And like I've heard multiple people say, is when it gets into this grittier part of the season, it becomes how well you can run the ball and how well you can stop the run. The Cowboys can forcibly run well. If Zeke's having a terrible game, he's still going to average 3-4 yards a carry. If he's having a decent game, it's 5 or 6 nowadays because of his off-season shit. But we can't stop the run. We had Tariq Cohen look good against us. We had David Montgomery. I genuinely thought he was going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year because he looked insane against us. Mitchell Trubisky's running against us from the pocket. He's throwing lasers. I seen a stat this morning on Twitter. If the Cowboys hadn't have got that toe tap drag interception on the first drive, the Chicago Bears would have scored on every drive that they had. That is disgusting.
Wow.
This is a team that started terribly. Their defense is still decent, but they literally nearly got their head coach sacked because this offense looks completely worse off. It looked like it had fallen off a cliff from last year, and the Dallas Cowboys made it look like a Hall of Fame offense. Like, oh man, I'm getting angry, but it's just, I can't understand how our defense has taken such a fall from grace this year. I really don't understand. And it pisses me off because now Jerry Jones is in a situation where he's not sacking Jason Garrett because he'll stick out with him for the rest of the season because that's, calculated Jerry move. But he's paid Jaylon Smith and paid DeMarcus Lawerence, and they've done jack shit this year. And now we're in a situation where we either have to franchise tag one of Amari or Dak and give the other one a max and try and somehow make it work. It's pissing me off. And I get why we did it. Like, I understand that, like, looking back now with, context and hindsight, I get why we did pay those guys because, teams would have swooped in and signed DeMarcus. But, looking back now, we knew Amari and Dak were decent enough to deserve the contracts that they deserved. DeMarcus Lawerence had one good season, and Jaylon Smith was, in his second year. Like, I still think second year is really hard to judge for a middle linebacker. And how many times have you seen a one-season wonder on the defensive line perform and then disappear? Like, it's
certainly.
I thought Jerry Jones would have been smarter than this, but obviously I'm expecting too much from the Cowboys.
I think Jerry Jones was trying to make too much of a statement with, Zeke sitting out and wasn't going to come back and so on. I think he was just trying to make too much of a statement by paying everyone else big, which, even I was kind of on board of at the start of the season.
Yeah.
But when you ended up in the end rushing Zeke back, the week of the first game and playing him and giving him the biggest contract a running back has seen, it made no sense to pay those guys then. And like you say, these people they did pay were, somewhat one-hit wonders that, we definitely had faith they were going to continue to perform. Like, there was so much expectation for this Cowboys team, but it's gone the complete opposite way, and it's hands up in the air, not sure what to do. Like, you have so much money put in your O-line, you have so much money in your defense now going through, and two of your best, two top 10 players in Amari and Dak, if not higher. Potentially one of them's not going to get paid, and who knows what's going to happen. And I think the scenario is it's going to be Dak's going to get paid and Amari's going to be franchise tagged, which he'll probably be fine with because, as we've said before, and especially you have, Texas is his hometown and this is where he's, the region that he's happy in. So he probably won't mind being franchise tagged, but it's a sad scenario to see all around.
Yeah, it is. And look, like, I get it. I think Jerry Jones, I think what you said was right. I think Jerry Jones made those moves out of spite to, piss Zeke off and say, like, oh, well, Tony Pollard's doing good in the preseason. Running backs are serviceable in this league. But the impact that, Zeke has on the offense and even the impact that Amari had on Dak last year, it's ridiculous. And it pisses me off, man, because, it's so stupid. I don't understand how you can see the impact that Amari had last year and not think that he warrants a new contract. Like, and it's just hindsight sucks because I look back now and I say the DeMarcus Lawerence deal and the Jaylon Smith deals were way out of proportion. I think Jaylon Smith still has 2 years left or 1 year left on his rookie deal. And I think DeMarcus still had 1 year before his new contract picks up. I don't know. I think DeMarcus Lawerence might be tradable, but we're going to have to send the boat to trade him. But we just need to look like an NBA team and just salary dump. I don't give a shit if the defense is shit. Just get in a new coach and come. Oh, see, this is the thing. Maybe we bring in a new coach and these guys play completely different. But
potentially, I don't think I think Garrett just lost the dressing room, and there's so much negative in this team. It's just you really need to dump this season. And honestly, whoever doesn't finish top seed out of Eagles and Cowboys, I arguably say are having the better season.
Yeah.
But
no, you're right.
I think that's chat's probably going to go into next week and seeing each week how this team goes. But I am looking to kind of wrap it up soon. So we'll run through a few games over the last few weeks that have happened. And, Baltimore beating San Fran last week, in a very close matchup, and Justin Tucker, the kicker he is, was just phenomenal. But that game could have gone either way, and it was, not necessarily good to see, but it was interesting to see San Fran were somewhat able to shut down Lamar, and he pretty much couldn't pass all game, and he was forced to run, which, isn't an issue when you're Lamar Jackson at all. Bengals getting the first win of the season against the Jets. It's not super impressive, but,
The Jets are a dumpster fire too, but we won't go into that.
yeah, they're just up and down, but a quality team that beat the Cowboys as well. Chiefs coming back strong. They're renowned for flogging the Raiders by these scores, and they did it once again. Like, just looking dominant. Patrick Mahomes is looking better each and every week that he comes back after this injury. So, credit to him. Texans beat the Patriots. I don't know if you caught this game, but Texans look phenomenal. They did exactly what you need to against the Patriots. Put them on the back foot early, hit them with a few things they haven't seen you do before. You get that lead and you force Brady to try and make a comeback. And, they got some points in, garbage time, the Patriots, but the game was already lost once Texans hit 28 points.
Yeah, exactly. I caught little bits of it. I think I caught most of the first half, and it was really impressive how the Texans were fighting and clawing and, really trying to stick it out. And, obviously this just reiterates that, the Texans defense hasn't really been that solid all year. And, they're still, they sort of look like they were competitive against the Patriots offense, which is a massive concern for the Patriots going into the playoffs, considering that, maybe we might have to self-scout and look back and say that maybe our takes on the Patriots defense, maybe it's not as elite as we thought. It's still good, but it's not as elite as we thought. But yeah.
Oh, it's still probably the best defense in the league. And you're going down to Deshaun Watson, who is one of my favorite quarterbacks in this league and phenomenal. Same. He's a great mobile quarterback. He threw for 3 touchdowns and caught a touchdown as well. Yeah. Like, he was just great. The team was phenomenal. And I think the defense just pretty much double-teamed Julian Edelman post the first quarter. And Patriots just had nothing after that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think Deshaun is the ultimate kryptonite for Bill Belichick. I think, Lamar might not be. Obviously, he's got to win this year, and Mahomes I don't think is either. But I feel like Deshaun Watson, for some reason, is just Bill Belichick's kryptonite.
I think just that mobile quarterback. Honestly, I think Patriots, we always say they come back better in that second game. But I think if Patriots come up against Texans or maybe even the Chiefs, I'm thinking they're just not going to be able to keep up with the Chiefs' offense this year.
Yeah, that's
Lamar
true.
Again. People think they'll be good against Lamar and the Baltimore this year, but I just think this mobile quarterback's too unpredictable, and it's really hurting Bill Belichick because no one knows what to do against him. But continuing on, Seahawks with a big win against Vikings, 37-30. These were the 2 wildcard teams going at it, and great to see Russell Wilson with another big game, come through and clutch up. That's what we've been seeing him do all year, and was really good performance, and actually pushes them into one of the top seeds in the NFC and pushes San Fran to the wildcard position. But a few interesting games this week as well. Baltimore and Buffalo. I think Buffalo probably going to get not flogged, but, shown where they belong in this league. I think Lamar is just going to be phenomenal in that game, and it's going to be a really good matchup though. Like, I've been really impressed with Josh Allen the last few weeks. Like, he's throwing unreal numbers. I think over the last 4 games, 6 touchdowns and 1 interception or something. Maybe I've just made that up off the top of my head, but I think it's relatively close to that. He's been great.
Yeah.
Lamar's been phenomenal, and it's going to be interesting too with a few games. You got Patriots and Chiefs playing each other, and then Rams and Seahawks, which both games are going to have really big implications on the rest of the season and seedings from this point in time.
Yeah, it's a very, very big playoff week. Like you mentioned there, Rams, Seahawks, Pats, Chiefs, even the, Saints, 49ers. I don't know if you mentioned that one. They're playing this week. Vikings, Lions too. Lions could make a run. I don't see that happening. But yeah, it's going to be a very good week. I think, we're sort of starting to see the teams. And just to go back to that Seahawks Vikings game that happened last week, I was super impressed with Kirk Cousins in that game. Obviously, his, primetime football not performing statistic continues. I think he's like 0-9 now in either Monday night football games or primetime games.
He's never won a Monday night football game.
Yeah, but I think he played very well. Like, he did.
It was still a great performance by him and the Vikings. Like, to still put 30 on the Seahawks, like,
is super impressive.
It's a good performance. It's just, that's what you get from Russell Wilson, who is just going to outperform you in a way. And definitely a low-key, really hype game is going to be the Raiders-Titans game. This is going to pretty much implications going to lead to who makes that wild card position. And it's going to be interesting to see who wins that for sure.
Exactly. And I think that's really it, isn't it? I think obviously
I think that wraps us up.
I'm sad for the Colts. I hope they can force back in there. But yeah, Titans Oakland's going to be a massive game this week. But yeah, I think that's it, man. It was a good podcast. Smashed out a lot.
If you'd like to wrap us up.
So thank you everyone for listening again to week 15 of the No One Asked. Yep, podcast 15 of the No One Asked podcast. You know, find us on Instagram at the No One Asked podcast?
No One Asked _podcast. Yes.
Bugger, but so No One Asked _podcast. But thanks, Brock. Thanks for doing another podcast with me, my man.
Sweet. Cheers. Have a good one.
Bye.